Good morning, students. So today's topic is anatomy of paranasal sinuses. So what are paranasal sinuses? Paranasal sinuses are basically nothing but the air cavities that are present in the pneumatic bones. If you remember the general anatomy lectures, so in that you will find the classification of bones. There is The bones of the human body is classified under various heads such as long bone, short bones, irregular bones, pneumatic bones. Uh, so uh, Pneumatic bones are those bones which has air spaces. So paranasal sinuses are air filled spaces that are present within that pneumatic bones. Okay, so there are basically four paranasal sinuses: the frontal sinus found in the frontal bone, the ethmoidal sinus found in the ethmoid bone, the maxillary sinus found in the maxilla, and the sphenoidal sinus found in the sphenoid bone. Okay, so these are the four paranasal sinuses, and all these paranasal sinuses will open into the nasal cavity. Okay, in last lecture we have already studied about nasal cavity, and we have studied about the concha and metasis. So you know that in the metasis there are openings of these paranasal sinuses. So all these paranasal sinuses will open into the nasal cavity through its lateral wall, and with the basic function of these paranasal sinuses are that they make the human skull very lighter, and also it adds the presence of these sinuses will add a resonance in the voice, and that is why when these sinuses will become infected, and the term is sinusitis, which is very common, and you have heard that term from someone or the other in your family, or by some doctor, that a person is suffering from sinusitis. That is nothing but bacterial infection or viral infection leading to the inflammation of these sinuses, paranasal sinuses, that is termed as sinusitis. We will go through this sinusitis term in detail in the clinical anatomy section. So in the case of sinusitis, there will be alteration in the voice, and that is due to the function of these sinuses. That is, these sinuses will provide or add resonance to the voice of a human being. So in case of sinusitis, this resonance is not present. That is why there will be alteration of voice. Now these sinuses will be rudimentary. These sinuses will be rudimentary, or in some cases it will be absent at birth. That means while birth or after birth, the neonate is not having, either not having these sinuses, or if they are having the sinuses, they will be rudimentary. That means they are not being well developed to perform its function, because these are the air spaces which is present within the pneumatic bones. So these bones, as the bones develop spontaneously, these sinuses will also develop spontaneously along with these pneumatic bones. So these, they become enlarged rapidly at the age of around 6 to 7 years. That is the age at which the eruption of permanent teeth will occur. And after that, after the age of 6 to 7 years in a human being, then around at the age of puberty, at attaining the puberty, during the attainment of puberty, these paranasal sinuses will develop again. So this is all about the paranasal sinuses. All the four, there are four paranasal sinuses, and we will deal with each paranasal sinuses in detail, about the features of each paranasal sinuses along with the arterial supply, venous drainage, lymphatics, and nerve supply. So the first one is the frontal sinus. Now talking about the frontal sinus, so as you can see in this figure, this frontal sinus lies in the frontal bone, and it lies to the deep to the superciliary arch. This is the superciliary, yeah, here you can see this is the superciliary arch, and deep to the superciliary arch is the frontal sinus, and this frontal sinus lies within the frontal bone. It basically, it is extending from upwards above from the medial end of the eyebrow, if you can see here. So you can trace it easily that यहाँ अगर इधर से भी देख सकते हैं, इस फिगर से भी ट्रेस कर सकते हैं. So from upward, if you are talking from the upwards, so it will extending from the medial end of the eyebrow, and it will extend backwards, it will extend backwards. Okay, it will extend backwards to the medial part of the roof of the orbit. This is the orbit, sorry, this is the frontal sinus, and you can see here these are the orbits. So you can easily see that it is extending towards the, it is extending towards the medial part of the roof of the orbit. Okay, now it we have already discussed the middle meatus, the middle meatus in the nasal cavity. So this middle meatus has the opening which is at the anterior end of the hiatus semilunaris. I have already discussed about hiatus semilunaris in my previous video lecture, so I am not going in detail of hiatus semilunaris. So the opening of this frontal sinus will be into the middle meatus of the nose and at the anterior end of the hiatus semilunaris. Okay, now both the right and the left frontal sinus, both these frontal sinus are not always equal in size. Usually they are not equal, usually they are unequal in size, and rarely or sometimes one of these sinus may be found absent or may not be developed well, or may be found rudimentary even after puberty. So if we are talking about, if we have to know the dimensions of these frontal sinuses, so the dimension of these frontal sinuses is 2.5 centimeter. I'm talking about the height, width and anteroposterior diameter. So the height, the width and anteroposterior diameter is 2.5 centimeters each. Okay, so this frontal sinus is 2.5 centimeter in average, in height and in width, as well as in anteroposterior depth. And if we if someone asks about the gender variation of this frontal sinus, then yes, there is gender variation, and males, in case of males, this frontal sinus is better developed as compared to females. Now talking about arterial supply, which is not visible or which is not seen here, but you can easily remember the arterial supply of the frontal sinus. And the arterial supply of the frontal sinus is through the supraorbital artery. The supraorbital artery supplies the arterial blood to the frontal sinus. Venous drainage will be into the anastomotic vein between the supraorbital and the superior ophthalmic veins. Okay. Talking about lymphatic drainage, then the lymph of this frontal sinus will be draining into the submandibular lymph nodes, and the nerve supply will also be from the supraorbital nerve. Now, talking about maxillary sinus. So, what is maxillary sinus? Where is maxillary sinus? As the name itself suggests, maxillary sinus is found in the maxilla bone. So, the maxilla bone is having the airspace, the largest airspace, that is called as the maxillary sinus. This maxillary sinus is the largest sinus among all the four, and it is the first paranasal sinus to develop. Okay, so the first, if the question came in examination for 2 marks, which sinus, which paranasal sinus is the first one to develop, then you have to write that maxillary sinus is the first sinus to develop. Okay, and it is the largest sinus among all the four. So this maxillary sinus lies within the body of the maxilla. Yes, you can see here, you can trace here This is the maxillary sinus, and it is, you can see here, yes, it is, the shape of this maxillary sinus is pyramidal in shape, and its base is, if we talk about its base, so its base is directed medially towards the lateral wall of nose. What you are seeing here is the base of this maxillary sinus. Okay, so the base is directed medially and it is visible. Yes, this is the base of the maxillary sinus, which is directed towards the lateral wall of nose. And talking about the apex, so apex is directed laterally and is not visible because it is sectioned here. So the apex is directed laterally towards the zygomatic process of the maxilla. Okay, so the zygomatic process of the maxilla is the apex of the sinus, and this is what we are seeing here in this figure is the base of the maxillary sinus. Now what you see that this maxillary sinus will again open into the middle meatus of the nose. Yes, you can see the opening into the middle meatus, middle nasal meatus. So this maxillary sinus also opens in the middle meatus of the nose, and where it will open, it will open in the lower part of the hiatus semilunaris. The frontal sinus is opening into the anterior end of the hiatus semilunaris, and this, the maxillary sinus will open into the late into the lateral part of the or lower part of the hiatus semilunaris. Sometimes there is a second opening which is often found in the posterior end of the hiatus semilunaris. At the anterior end of the hiatus semilunaris, there will be opening of the frontal sinus, whereas at the posterior end of the hiatus semilunaris, there will be opening of this maxillary sinus, and both these openings are nearer to the roof than the floor. Okay, these openings are nearer to the roof. Yes, you can see this is the roof of the maxillary sinus and this is the floor. The roof of, now talking about, first we'll talk about the dimensions. So talking about the height, so height is approximately 3.5 centimeters, width is approximately 2.5 centimeters, and antero-posterior diameter is around 3.5 centimeter. So these are the dimensions of maxillary sinus. Now we are talking about the roof and the floor. So the roof of the maxillary sinus is formed by the floor of the orbit. This is the orbit. Yes, it is labeled here. This is the orbit, and this is the floor of the orbit. And this floor of the orbit is forming the roof for the maxillary sinus. So the roof of the maxillary sinus is formed by the floor of the orbit. Okay, and the floor of the maxillary sinus, talking about the floor of the maxillary sinus, so it is formed by the alveolar process of this maxilla. Okay, you can see here the alveolar process of these maxilla bone. So this maxilla bone, the alveolar process of the maxilla bone will form the floor of this maxillary sinus. And talking about the level of this floor, so you can see here uh, the the floor basically lies about 1 centimeter below the level of the floor of the nose. So this is the floor of the nose, and around 1 centimeter, this is the level of the floor of the nose, and around 1 centimeter below is the floor of the maxillary sinus. Or you can say the level will correspond, the level of this floor of the maxillary sinus will correspond to the lower border of the ala nasal. Okay, so lower border of the ala nasal is in correspondence with the floor of the maxillary sinus. Now talking about the arterial supply of the maxillary sinus, so arterial supply of the maxillary sinus will be done through facial artery, infraorbital as well as greater palatine artery, and venous drainage will be into the facial vein and pterygoid plexus of vein, similar to the venous drainage of the lateral wall of nose. And talking about lymphatic drainage, so again the lymph from the maxillary sinus will be draining into submandibular lymph nodes, and nerve supply will again be from the infraorbital and anterior, middle and posterior superior alveolar nerves. Now talking about sphenoidal sinus, so sphenoidal sinus, okay, remember one thing, I am explaining sinus as one entity, but you must remember that all these sinus will be present bilaterally. That means we have right is from right maxillary sinus and left maxillary sinus. We have right frontal and left frontal sinuses. We have right sphenoidal and left sphenoidal sinuses. And similarly, at the there will be ethmoidal sinuses, but ethmoidal sinuses will have slight variation. Ethmoidal sinuses will be found in group anterior, middle, and posterior one. We'll discuss it in the forthcoming slide. Now, coming back to the sphenoidal sinus. So, sphenoidal sinus is found within the body of the sphenoid, similarly as of the case of maxillary sinus. So sphenoidal sinus, yes, the right and left sphenoidal sinus lies within the body of the sphenoid bone, and they are basically the right and the left sphenoidal sinus are separated by a thin septum. Okay, so these two sinuses are also usually unequal in size, as the case of frontal sinus was there. So similarly, as of frontal sinuses, this sphenoidal sinuses is also not equal in size. They are the right and the left sphenoidal sinus are unequal in size, and each of the sinus will open into the sphenoethmoidal recess. You can see this blue arrow. This is showing the sphenoethmoidal recess, and the right sphenoidal sinus will open into the right nasal cavity, and the left ethmoidal sinus will open to the left inside of the nasal cavity into the sphenoethmoidal recess. Now, each of the sinus is related superiorly to the pituitary gland, the hypophysis cerebri, okay, to the pituitary gland, or you can say as hypophysis cerebri. And there will be optic chiasma also, which is not mentioned in this figure. So optic chiasma and hypophysis cerebri, pituitary gland, is in relation, superior relation to this sphenoidal sinus. And laterally, talking about the lateral relation, so laterally we have the carotid artery, internal carotid artery, and the cavernous sinus, which is also not mentioned in this figure. So lateral relation of this sphenoidal sinus are the internal carotid artery and the cavernous sinus. The arterial supply of this sphenoidal sinus will be from the posterior ethmoidal and internal carotid arteries. Okay, posterior ethmoidal and internal carotid arteries. Venous drainage will be into the pterygoid plexus of vein and as well as cavernous sinus. Lymphatic drainage will be into the retropharyngeal lymph nodes, and nerve supply will be from posterior ethmoidal nerve and orbital branches of the pterygopalatine ganglion. Now, last but not the least are the ethmoidal sinuses. So yes, I am talking about a variation in the ethmoidal sinus, that is, it is not divided into right and left half, or right ethmoidal sinus or left ethmoidal sinus, but ethmoidal sinus are numerous. You can see here, these are the numerous small intercommunicating spaces which lies within the labyrinth of this ethmoid bone. This is the labyrinth of ethmoid bone where I am moving my cursor, and within this labyrinth of ethmoid bone you can find, or you can observe, various small intercommunicating spaces that are called as ethmoid sinus or ethmoidal sinus. And these ethmoidal sinus will be completed from above. If we are talking from above, that these sinus will be completed from above by the orbital plate of this frontal bone. This is the orbital plate of the frontal bone, the yellow one. Yes. So this is the orbital plate of the frontal bone, which completes these ethmoidal sinus from the above. And from behind, if we are talking from behind, so yes, yeah, यहाँ पे आके देखते हैं. So from behind, so this will be completed by the sphenoidal conchae, and along with the sphenoidal conchae there will be orbital process of the palatine bone. Okay, orbital process of the palatine bone. Okay, so that will complete the ethmoidal sinus from behind. Now, the ethmoidal sinus is divided, as I have already told you in the previous slide, that the ethmoidal sinus is divided into anterior, middle, and posterior groups. First of all, we'll talk about anterior ethmoidal sinus. So talking about the anterior ethmoidal sinus, it is basically made up of 1 to 11. There will be around 1 to 11. There will be variation in the numbers of air spaces. So it is around 1 to 11 air cells that are present in the anterior ethmoidal sinus, and these will open into the anterior part of the hiatus semilunaris of the nose. Hiatus semilunaris is present where? Into the middle meatus. So into the middle meatus of the nasal cavity or the nose, in at the anterior end of the hiatus semilunaris, these anterior ethmoidal sinus will open, and it is supplied by the anterior ethmoidal nerve and vessels. Okay, the anterior ethmoidal sinus will be supplied by the anterior ethmoidal nerves and vessels, and the lymph will drain into the submandibular lymph nodes. Now talking about the middle ethmoidal sinuses, so the middle one consists of around 1 to 7 air spaces, and these middle ethmoidal sinus also opens into the middle meatus of the nose, and this will be supplied, the middle ethmoidal sinus will be supplied from by the posterior ethmoidal nerve and vessels. Okay, so the anterior ethmoidal nerve will supply the anterior ethmoidal sinus, and the posterior ethmoidal nerve will supply the middle ethmoidal sinus as well as posterior ethmoidal sinus too. So I'm talking about right now, I'm talking about the middle ethmoidal sinus, and middle ethmoidal sinus contains 1 to 7 number of air spaces and is also opening into the middle meatus of the nose, and is supplied by the posterior ethmoidal vessels and nerves, and the lymph from this middle ethmoidal sinus will be draining into again the submandibular lymph nodes. Now talking about the posterior ethmoidal sinus, the posterior ethmoidal sinus also contains 1 to 7 air cells, and the posterior ethmoidal sinus will open into the superior nasal meatus, not middle nasal meatus but superior nasal meatus, and it is also supplied by the posterior ethmoidal nerves and vessels, and along with that, it is also supplied by the orbital branches of the pterygopalatine ganglion. Lymphatic drainage from this posterior ethmoidal sinus will be into the retropharyngeal lymph nodes. So this is all about the features and some arterial supply, or you can say blood supply, lymphatics and nerve supply of paranasal sinuses. Now we'll move on to clinical anatomy of paranasal sinuses, and first of all we'll talk about sinusitis. So sinusitis is nothing but the inflammation of these paranasal sinuses caused due to infection of this sinus. So what you can define sinusitis is that sinusitis, also known as a sinus infection or rhinosinusitis, is the inflammation of the mucous membrane that lines the sinuses, or you can say infection of a sinus is also termed as sinusitis. And in that case there will be excess mucus secretion, or and mucus accumulation within the sinus cavities. Okay, and you can also see this is the normal sinuses, these are the normal sinuses, and you can see these are the inflamed sinuses. So the mucus lining, the sinus lining will be inflamed, and there will be accumulation of the mucus due to the infection, that is termed as sinusitis. The common symptoms are nasal discharge, thick, purulent, persistent nasal discharge. Then you can feel plugged nose or stoppage of nostrils. You can also feel facial pain, and fever is very common or rare but can be found in some cases, along with headache. The most common symptoms are the nasal discharge, thick purulent mucus nasal discharge, and headache. These are most two common symptoms that are found in every case of sinusitis. Diagnosis of sinusitis is basically assisted through transillumination and radiography. That means you can take X-ray and you can take CT to diagnose a case of sinusitis. And in case of a diseased sinus, or in case of a sinus affecting from sinusitis, there will be opaque imaging. So in case of X-ray, if you are finding any of the sinuses opaque, then that means that sinus is affected or infected, and the person is suffering from sinusitis. Now talking before talking about antrum puncture, I must quote one thing, that the most out of all the four paranasal sinuses, the most common sinus that is commonly affected by the infections, or that is most commonly affected in case of sinusitis, that is the maxillary sinus. The maxillary sinus is most commonly involved in case of sinusitis, and it is it is infected from even from the nose as well as from a dental caries of the tooth. If you can see here, this is a tooth, and if there is dental caries in this tooth, then that caries, that infection will transmit into this maxillary sinus, and this sinus will also become infected. So drainage of this sinus, as you can see, if there is accumulation of fluid or mucus within this maxillary sinus cavity, so the drainage of this sinus is very difficult, because the ostium of this maxillary sinus, it lies higher to the level of its floor. Okay, so you can see here that drainage is very tough. So there is a process, there is a surgical intervention in which the sinus, this maxillary sinus, is drained surgically, and it is basically drained by making an artificial opening near the floor of the one of the near the floor of this maxillary sinus. Okay, so you can see here this is the floor of the maxillary sinus, and this is a sterile probe through which the surgeon is making an artificial opening, by which or through which the maxillary sinus will be drained, or the infected maxillary sinus will be drained, and this is termed as puncture. The antrum puncture, which can be done by breaking the lateral wall of the inferior meatus. Okay, so by breaking the lateral wall of the inferior meatus, or by making an artificial opening into the floor of the maxillary sinus, this infected maxillary sinus will be drained, and patient can get relief. Another surgical intervention will be there, that is called as Caldwell Luck operation, and in that Caldwell Luck operation, there will be opening made at the canine fossa through the vestibule of the mouth. Okay, so through the vestibule of the mouth, there will be an opening at the canine fossa. Okay, made at the canine fossa, and which is deep to the upper lip. And that operation is called as Caldwell Luck operation. Now, carcinoma of sinuses are not so common, but you can found one or the other cases of carcinoma of sinuses in frequent ENT OPDs. Now, carcinoma of sinus, the most common sinus affected from carcinoma is again the maxillary sinus, because as we have already discussed previously, that maxillary sinus is the most common sinus that is affected by or that gets infected easily. So similarly, carcinoma is also common in the maxillary sinus as well as the ethmoidal sinus, and the symptoms which arise in these cases will depend upon the direction of the growth as well as the size of the growth. So you can see here that size of the tumor and the direction of the growth will decide the symptomatology. So in case of the invasion of the orbit, you can see that this is the orbit, and you can see that this tumor is invading the orbit. So in case of this invasion of the orbit, this will cause proptosis and diplopia. This will cause proptosis and diplopia. And if the infraorbital nerve is involved, then there will be facial pain and anesthesia of the skin over the maxilla. Okay, now if the invasion of the floor of the maxillary sinus will be there, so the invasion of the floor will produce a bulging or even ulceration of the palate. Okay, if the floor is invaded, so there will be bulging of this palate. This is the palate, and it may bulge out, or there may be ulceration of this palate. Forward growth, if forward growth and towards anteriorly, if the growth is forward, then it will albitrate the canine fossa and produces a swelling on the face. Backward growth will involve the palatine nerves and produces severe pain that will be referred onto the upper jaw of the upper jaw or the upper teeth. Growth in the medial direction, if there is a growth in the medial direction, then this growth will produce nasal obstruction. Yes, you can see this is the nasal cavity. So if any carcinomatic growth is there in which is in the medial direction, so these growth will cause nasal obstruction or can also cause epistaxis and epiphora. And growth in the lateral one, the growth in the lateral direction will produce the swelling on the face and a palpable mass on the labiogingival groove. Okay, so this is all about the carcinoma of sinuses. The most common sinuses that is involved in carcinoma are the maxillary sinus and the ethmoidal sinus. So this is all about paranasal sinuses. Now in next video lecture we will start with the anatomy of larynx. Till then, stay home, stay healthy, take care. Thank you so much.